Hi guys, Pink Pearl Parent here. Today's going to be a slightly different video. I'm going to share some stories about my past which have undoubtedly shaped the person that I am today and how I empathise with children and how I parent children. So when I was, there's two events that I want to talk about. When I was 6 years old, my mum got cancer, and while she was having treatment, me and my siblings, my two sisters, went into foster care. You know, I don't have many memories, but the ones that I do have are really strong. I remember turning up at their house and, you know, being asked to call them kind of Auntie Tracy and Uncle Colin. This was back in the 80s. We wouldn't really insist on that today, but back then, that's how it was. And I remember the first night in that bedroom. It was scary because, you know, you're in a house, you don't know anybody apart from your sisters, but you don't know the adults that are there. And it's really scary because, you know, you were at home and now suddenly you're somewhere else. I remember there was a bin in the corner of the room. It had this like fabric around it, so it had a face on it. This little like dustbin with a face, which I think was supposed to be quite cute. But I just remember feeling this intense fear when that light went out. The door was left open, and, you know, the hallway light was on, but it was casting this kind of ominous light onto this face on this bin, which to me as a 6-year-old, it felt like it was guarding that door. You know, it's funny when you think back on it, but I remember just feeling really scared. And, you know, when I think about children that come to stay with us, you know, we are always mindful of how they are going to feel, you know, in their bedroom. What could possibly kind of be quite triggering for them. So other little memories that I've got from being in foster care. I remember there was it was Christmas, and I remember being taken to see Santa, which was amazing because I'd never seen Santa before. And we went on this little kind of, it felt like this choo-choo train, but I think it must have been some kind of, it was definitely in an old supermarket that's no longer there anymore. It's funny how the imagination of a child can like make things bigger and bigger than they actually are and more magical. But it was really good. I got a skipping rope. No, I didn't get a skipping rope. My sister got a skipping rope, like as her present from Santa. You know, when you go and you get one. And I remember getting like a gun. And I remember saying to my sister, I don't want to play with this. I want the skipping rope. So we swapped. Other memories from foster care. I remember reading in my head for the very first time. And it was one of the Mr. Men books. It was the purple one. Oh God, what's it called? What's it, like Mr. Busy, maybe? But it was a purple one, and I just couldn't believe at the time, you know, 6 years old, that it was absolutely possible to read inside your head without actually saying the words. And I remember tying my shoelaces for the very first time by myself. And then I also remember going to the toilet and standing up for a wee and then sitting down, obviously for a poo. And I remember bursting down the stairs, like running down and announcing to Auntie Tracy and Uncle Colin and their guests that I'd managed to stand up for a pee and sit down for a poo, rather than just sitting down all of the time. So those were some of the milestones. But I remember feeling afterwards kind of this guilt, these feelings of the fact that my mum wasn't able to experience those things with me, and I wasn't able to experience them with her. And I think that's something we need to remember when children aren't with their kind of their biological mum or dad. That there is going to be this element of guilt, you know, and so it's normal for children to act out and to feel maybe a little bit withdrawn as well around those things. We did eventually go back to live with my mum and my stepdad, and actually before I kind of carry on with that story, because I had so few memories of being in foster care, I reached out to our local authority a number of years ago, and because I wanted to do like an access request and get access to the files, because I only really knew what my mum told me. My mum has died now, so you know there's not really anything else, any more information I can get. But unfortunately, they'd lost all the records. Apparently, they all used to be on paper, and then when it was kind of transferred over to the computer system, they just went. So there's this massive gap in kind of what happened to me, the knowledge about what happened to me. It's just gone, because I can't remember it all. And can I really trust the memories that I've got? You know, I'm in my 40s now, and I'm thinking back to when I was that young. You know, memory is a fickle thing; it changes. So I reached out. I found my foster carers, you know, using Facebook. I didn't really know the surnames, but I did manage to kind of track them down, or one of them, and I was able to get this amazing picture, which I'm going to put up now on the video. Now, bear in mind, I've actually only got two photos of me before the age of 10. One as a baby, and then one which was a school photo when I was 8, because my parents didn't have a camera and we were quite poor, so we just didn't have access to stuff like that. So to see myself, this photo, you know, I mean, just look, I know where I got that hair from, because my mum used to put a bowl on my head and cut right across, right across my fringe. But it's just really surprising, you know, this whole part of your life that you have little memory of. But I was ever so grateful to my foster carer for first of all looking after the 3 of us. You know, there aren't many foster carers that can take on 3 children, but they did, and it kept us together. And you know, when you're losing your mum and you know the people around you, you do, you know, it really helps to kind of have your siblings with you to experience that together. So we went back to live with mum. So I was obviously 6 years old when I went into foster care. But then at the age of 9, I became homeless. Well, we all did. My parents were evicted from their house. Now at the time, I didn't understand why. You know, because you know I was kind of 9 years old. How would I know? You know, why we were being evicted? But I remember being told by my mum and my stepdad that we had to pack our things up because the next day we were leaving. You know, that is a massive shock to any kid, and I don't recommend doing it. Absolutely give notice. I know there's a need to a desire to protect children, but one day's notice is not enough. I remember going into school that day and telling my friends that I was going, and they were shocked. And then we all got into a van and we went to a homeless shelter, which was not good. It was this old Victorian house. It was 2 bedrooms, so me and my 2 sisters shared. I think my sister was, well, if I was 9, she was 14, because she's 5 years older, and then my younger sister would have been about kind of 7 or 8, and it was so cold. There was little insects running around. I remember that. There was this huge, well, it's supposed to be a fire, but I don't actually think it was a fire. I think it was some kind of immersion heater, and it had this tiny little flame, like a pilot light. It must have been a massive boiler, but weirdly, it was in the living room. Obviously, this was a really old Victorian house, so they've had to kind of retrofit all of this stuff, retrofit it all in. But I remember it being this big thing. Well, it is in my memory. This huge thing that actually didn't help us very much. And I remember things being really hard in that homeless shelter. We had a warden. You did not want to annoy the warden, who had the office. Was in the office. There's a barrier, so that cars couldn't get through. Kind of to the street where the homeless shelters were. And I remember every Saturday at 3:00, the families in the shelter would go to the warden's office, because the local supermarkets would drop off their out-of-date food, things that, give, I guess, a bit like a food bank today, really, but it was basically they couldn't sell it anymore. And I remember getting really excited because it's a little bit like supermarket sweep, isn't it, where you get to go to a supermarket and you get to have anything you want. We got all of this stuff delivered and we could take our pick. And I remember the hot cross buns. I loved those hot cross buns. But thinking back on it now, obviously there are similarities with people going to food banks, and there's a lot more food banks now than there were. But again, I don't think people who know me would probably imagine that, at kind of 9 years old, we were going and eating, and being really happy about getting out-of-date hot cross buns. School was interesting. It was a bit of a journey. We'd walk down to the school, and I just remember that school became a bit of a sanctuary for me. I enjoyed having my friends, but then at home it was tough because being homeless, it takes its stress. It's stressful on a family. So my parents were arguing. It wasn't a great environment at all. And then I remember being coming home from school and being told that we were leaving, but my mum and my stepdad weren't leaving the homeless shelter. The 3 of us were. Our clothes were in black bags on the side of the pavement, and my Uncle John was there to take us. Or if he was, I don't think he was there because he didn't have a car, but we were getting in a car and going to Uncle John's because we were going to go live with him. Basically, my mum and my stepdad were afraid that, if the children, as children, stayed in the homeless shelter for any longer, because we'd been there for about 6 months, that actually it would prompt social services to remove us from their care. So we went to go live with Uncle John. I don't actually think my parents told social services, or I've no idea, but we went to go stay with Uncle John and his girlfriend Donna. Now, Uncle John would have been about 35 at the time. So as a 35-year-old taking on 3 kids from this type of situation, I'm ever so thankful for him and his girlfriend Donna. They looked after us for about 3 months, and I've got a few memories of making making bananas and custard with Donna, and making kind of marshmallow with coconut and chocolate around it. That was really nice. But I also remember the intense fear of being found out because we weren't enrolled in the school, so we had to stay indoors at all times during school hours. We had to hide and not go near the windows. And what made it more difficult was the school was actually right behind the house, and it was like some apartments, so we would be seen if we were near the windows, and it's not a good way to live. So yeah, for 3 months I didn't go to school, and I loved school. Remember, school was my sanctuary, so to have that taken away was really hard. So I remember turning 10 when I was there and crying because I did not think that my mum and my stepdad were going to come and see me. They were coming, they were just stuck in traffic, but for a 10-year-old, really immense feelings, really huge feelings, feeling like I'd been abandoned, and that isn't good. And so, that helps me understand the children in our lives and how hard it can be for them to be apart from people that are important to them. It's something that I'm keenly aware of, and so it helps with the empathy. It helps me relate to children who have experienced trauma, because I've experienced them myself. I mean, there's a lot of other events that I've not talked about in today's video. I just wanted to touch on those two, but it has a real impact, and actually I think that sadly the long lasting impact, which has been difficult, was I blamed my stepdad. I blamed him because he was supposed to be the one looking after us and paying the bills and paying the mortgage, and didn't, and therefore we lost our house. And we didn't just lose our house, we lost our animals. We had loads of animals. We had a dog. We lost our dog. We just had to give it all up. It was really hard. And but years later I discovered that actually, well, I didn't discover, I knew at the time, but I didn't put 2 and 2 together, because as a kid you don't. And my dad had a stroke. My stepdad had a stroke when I was 9, and he was paralysed down one side of his body. And I remember the constant trips to the hospital. So is it any wonder that he couldn't pay the bills? Because he didn't have a job where you got a salary. He was a bit of a Dell boy. He had to go out and earn his money, and if he didn't go out, there was no money. So I guess if there's no money, you can't pay the bills. But I didn't understand that then. I didn't put 2 and 2 together. And for years I blamed him, and it impacted our relationship. And I'm not very close to him at all. So that's the lasting damage. And I think that's why, for me, I always want to encourage children to have the best possible relationship that they can have, with the people that are important to them. And that's why I'm keen to make sure that children understand what's actually happening, so that they don't go through life feeling like that, because it's hard. So anyway, a different type of video today. I wanted to be more open and talk to you about some of the things that I faced. I'll probably do more of these as time goes by, because I think it's important for you to connect with me, with who I am, and hopefully together, I can share some of this information with you, so that you can think about how you approach things with the children that are in your lives. And if you're in a really fortunate position, just please don't take for granted that every child is like that. So I know, for example, that you may be in a good position now, hopefully, with your family, but perhaps your kids are friends with other children who are maybe not the best influence for them. But please try to think about what life that child is having. Yeah, they could just be misbehaving, but misbehaviour often stems from something deeper. And so just be more mindful of the stuff that people are going through. So I'm Sebastian and the Pink Pill Parent, and I will catch you next week.